Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Knowledge with Miss Mutu. So today we are going to be working on lesson 2. And lesson 2 is called A Taxing Time, the Boston Tea Party. We're back with day 2 of our new domain. We are diving into lesson 2. Before we can go into and read the new story, we have to talk about what we have already learned. So I want us to think back on lesson 1 and recall the names of the 3 English settlements in North America and what we learned in the last read aloud. So what are those 3 English settlements? If you named the Pilgrims in Plymouth, you are correct. Randolph's Island, the Lost County, and Jamestown, you are so right. These were the first English settlements in North America. As time passed, more and more English settlers arrived in North America. All up and down the east coast of North America, they formed more colonies where they started new lives for themselves. So everything that's in the red, those represent the new colonies. So now we are going to learn and review some information about the colonies. It's going to help us during this read aloud. Get ready. Here's the first question. What country did many of the people who lived in the colonies originally come from? They originally came from Great Britain. Next question. Let's see how well our memory is. How many different or separate colonies along the coast of North America did the British settle in? Here they are. Let's count them from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. The answer is 13 colonies. Next question. Who governed and controlled the colonies? You would think that they governed themselves, right? But wrong. The British colonies were controlled by the British King and his British Parliament. So even though they were in North America, they were controlled by the British King. Next question. When the colonists needed more help to clear additional land for farming, what did they do? They brought people from Africa and made them work as enslaved people. So here you notice this is the map and it represents the way that they traveled from North America to Africa. And yes, they enslaved Africans and made them work for no pay. We will be diving into the 13 colonies and we'll be learning tons of information about these colonies. But before we jump in, I want us to go back and review the names and order of each colony. Here we go. Let's start from the beginning. Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. We will be learning about some of the important events that led to the creation of our country or nation, the United States of America. As I'm reading, I want you to listen carefully to learn about some of the problems the colonists encountered and to find out why colonists did something drastic when they had the Boston Tea Party. Get ready. For a long time, many colonists were proud to be British citizens ruled by the King of Great Britain. But then things began to change. The King and the British Parliament had spent a lot of money helping to set up and protect the colonists. To help pay for these expenses, Parliament decided to make the colonists in America pay taxes to Great Britain. Taxes are extra money people pay when they buy certain things. For example, today we pay taxes when we buy clothes at department stores, food in a restaurant, or gasoline for a car. Depending on the state where you live, you might pay $1 or $2 more for new shirts than what's listed on the price tag, or a few extra cents for your sandwich than the price listed on the menu. But these stores do not keep this extra money. They must give the extra money or taxes to the government. These days, we vote and elect representatives or people to represent us in government. These people make decisions on how to best spend taxes to provide public services that benefit who live there. So currently in the United States, we have 50 states. Each state is run by a governor. Yes, we have the president of the United States who, helps make major decisions for the nation. But we have governors who make decisions for the state. For example, we all live in New York State, and our governor is called Andrew Cuomo. He makes decisions for New York. For example, if schools are open or closed, that's his decision, and he's the representative for New York. So let's continue learning more and talking more about representatives and government. Just wanted to explain that to us. So the government uses the taxes to help pay for things that everybody needs, like schools, public transportation, roads, water, and garbage services, police, fire protection, and other public services. But back in the time when the colonies were first established, the people who lived in the colonies were not permitted to vote and elect representatives or people to represent them in the British Parliament on the other side of the ocean. So this room that you see right here is the image of one of the rooms in Great Britain in which the British Parliament met up or had their meetings. So many people who lived in the American colonies in the 1700s felt that it was unfair for the British king to ask them to pay taxes. The colonists were asked to pay extra for stamps, sugar, and other things. Because the colonists could not voice their opinions to the British government through representatives, they wondered why should they even have to pay taxes? It just didn't seem fair to them. All over the colonies, people grew more and more angry. But it was in the colony of Massachusetts that tempers flared the most. King George of Great Britain sent troops to try and keep the peace in Boston, but it did not help very much. The people in the colony of Massachusetts were really mad about paying taxes. Then in 1773, the British Parliament did something that the colonists could not stand. They passed a law called the Tea Act and tried to force the colonists to buy tea from one British company only, charging them a large tax for the tea. The colonists did not think it was fair to force them to pay more for tea, and they refused to pay taxes on tea, one of their favorite drinks. They began sending shiploads of tea back to Britain and ordering tea from the Dutch Republic instead. The Dutch Republic was the name of the country we know as the Netherlands today. This made the king even angrier. He told them that they could not send any more tea back to Great Britain without paying the tax. Because of this, the colonists of Massachusetts revolted, or they rose up against the British king. They decided that they would not accept the king's decision. Why do you think the colonists ordered tea from the Dutch Republic? They ordered tea from this company because it was cheaper. The British Tea Company was charging them too much tax or too much money. Let's move on and see what they did as a result. Shiploads of British tea continued to enter the port of Boston, Massachusetts. A port is a place on the coast where ships load and unload goods. On a December night In 1773, a group of men known as the Sons of Liberty planned a most unusual tea party. If we were going to have a tea party, what might we do? Yeah, I might dress up. I might get a cute tea set, right? I might make it like a nice little celebration. Listen to see if that is the kind of tea party the Sons of Liberty had. Smearing their faces with soot, grease, and streaks of red paint, they stuck feathers in their hair, disguising as Mohawk Native Americans, a common symbol of freedom at the time. They made their way down to the harbor, or the water along the coast, climbing aboard 3 British ships. They dumped 342 chests of valuable tea into the Boston harbor. This meant that the British lost tea and money. This event became known as the Boston Tea Party. Furious, King George of Great Britain closed the port of Boston, one of the American colony's most important ports. He told them that they would not receive any more goods from Great Britain until they paid for the tea that they had destroyed. With no supplies coming from Great Britain, there was nothing for the colonists to sell in their shops, so people had to close their shops. I want you to point to the image that you see here. It is a shop in Boston that was owned by a man called Paul Revere. So you'll hear more about Paul Revere in the next read aloud, but keep that in mind. Let's continue reading. Many people lost their jobs. Food was scarce, meaning it wasn't a lot of food. Colonists from up and down the East Coast helped out, sending money and supplies to Massachusetts. What were the colonists to do? What should they say to the king? The people of Boston began to talk of war against Great Britain and its king, but other colonists warned them not to act so quickly. Wait a bit, they suggested. It is never a good idea to fight back without cooling off a bit first. All 13 colonies decided to come up with a plan together. They held a big meeting in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, about midway between the farthest New England colonies and the farthest southern colonies. Each colony elected representatives to attend the meeting. It wasn't possible for all the colonists to attend the meeting, so each colony sent a few people to speak for them. It was the first time the representatives from all the colonies, except Georgia, met together in one place. They call themselves the Continental Congress. Continental Congress. Leaders in the colonies were divided. Some remained loyal or faithful to Great Britain and the king. They were called loyalists. After all, they said, we're British too. Others were beginning to think of themselves not as British citizens, but as Americans. They wanted to rule themselves instead of being ruled by a faraway king. These people were called the Patriots. So I can't really point to each person as I read, so I'm going to need your help for you to point to each person as I read. Here we go. Members of the Continental Congress included George Washington from Virginia. So point to the first person you see. That's George Washington. Good job. A young army commander who had helped protect the colonies. Benjamin Franklin. Point to the second person you see. Thank you. Good job. Attended the second meeting of the Continental Congress, a Philadelphian known for his ability to get people to work together. Though unable to attend, Thomas Jefferson, point to the last person, good job, known as an excellent writer, was elected as a representative from Virginia. So I want you to point to the first person, that's George Washington. Nice. Second person, I want you to point to that person, and he is Benjamin Franklin. And the third person, I want you to point to him again, and he is Thomas Jefferson. Good job helping me out. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's move on. At the First Continental Congress, the representatives decided to approach the king in a friendly way. They sent him a letter telling him that they wanted to work things out peacefully. They asked that the British Parliament stop making laws or rules for them. We feel that we should create our own laws since we are not able to vote for laws in Parliament. They said. In the meantime, while they waited for an answer from the king, the colonists decided to stop selling goods to Great Britain and to stop buying goods from Great Britain. I want you to point to this building, and this is where the representatives met in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So this is a part of history. Let's keep reading to see what else we could learn. At the end of the meeting, the colonists were still split in their opinions about what to do. The loyalists hoped that the king would grant their request, letting them make their own laws while still remaining British. The patriots kept things stirred up, talking about going to war and breaking away from Great Britain altogether. So the loyalists and the patriots did not agree about what to do. The loyalists were loyal to who? If you said the king, you're so right. The loyalists were loyal to the king. The patriots wanted to make their own laws. Did they want to obey the king anymore? If you said no, you're so right. The patriots wanted to break away. It certainly was not a calm time at all. The end. Hope you enjoyed the story. We will be learning more and getting more information about the colonies. For now, what we're going to do is answer some comprehension questions. The key to answering comprehension questions is to make sure you're thinking about specific evidence and details from the story. So now let's get ready. Question 1. What are taxes and what are they used for? Okay, let's go back into the text to get some more detail to add evidence to your answer. Here we go. Taxes are extra money people pay when they buy certain things. For example, today we pay taxes when we buy clothes at department stores, foods in a restaurant, or gasoline for the car. Depending on the state where you live, you might pay or have to pay $1 or $2 more for a new shirt than what's listed on the price tag, or a few extra cents for a sandwich than the price listed on the menu. But these stores do not keep this extra money. They must give the extra money or taxes to the government. Question number 2. What is a representative? Thank you for sharing your response. Now let's go back to the text to see if there's anything that we missed or we can get more evidence for this answer. All right, let's go back. And luckily, it's the same image, so let's keep on reading. These days, we vote and elect representatives or people to represent us in government. These people make decisions on how to best spend taxes to provide public services that benefit all who live there. The government uses the taxes to help pay for things that everybody needs, like school, public transportation, roads, water and garbage services, police and fire protection, and other public services. So representatives are people that you vote or elect for that help represent or figure out where your taxes need to be spent. All right, let's go to question number 3. Why did the king and the British Parliament decide to tax the British colonies in America? Why did they decide to tax them? So many people who lived in the American colonies in the 1700s felt that it was unfair for the British king to ask them to pay taxes. The colonists were asked to pay extra for stamps, sugar, and other things. Because the colonists could not voice their opinions to the British government through representatives, they wondered why they should even be paying taxes in the first place. It seemed so unfair to them to have to pay for British protection. So the British taxed them to get money, and the British Parliament had spent a lot of money to help protect the colonies. So they charged them these taxes just to get their money back or to get money from them. All right, next question. How did the British colonists feel about being taxed? We kind of just read that part. How did they feel? They disagree with it. They were really, really angry. And they felt this way because they did not have representatives in Parliament to voice their opinions. Next question. What was the Boston Tea Party? All right, let's go back to the text to see if we get some more text evidence about this event and why it's important. On a December night in 1773, a group of men known as the Sons of Liberty planned the most unusual tea party. Smearing their faces with soot grease and streaks of red paint, they stuck feathers in their hair. Disguised as Mohawk Native Americans, a common symbol of freedom at the time, they made their way down to the harbor or the water along the coast. Climbing aboard 3 British ships, they dumped 342 chests of valuable tea into the Boston harbor. This meant that the British lost tea and money. This event became known as the Boston Tea Party. Next question, question number 5. What was the colonists' plan for solving the problem with the British king? What did they plan to do to solve this problem? Okay, let's go back to the text to see what they plan to do. And let's get some more details for the answers that we already have. We all good readers always go back to see if there's anything that they can add. So let's go back into the text. All 13 colonies decided to come up with a plan together. They held a big meeting in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, about midway between the farthest New England colonies and the farthest southern colonies. Each colony elected a representative to attend the meeting. It was the first time that representatives from all colonies except Georgia met together in one place. They called themselves the Continental Congress. Leaders in the colonies were divided. Some remained loyal or faithful to Great Britain and the king. They were called the Loyalists. After all, they said, we're British too. Others were beginning to think of themselves not as British citizens, but as Americans. They wanted to rule themselves instead of being ruled by a faraway king. These people were called the Patriots. So to summarize, they had a meeting called the First Continental Congress, and they wrote a letter to the king. Here's a question I want you to think, and I want you to share with me what you think the answer is. Did the Boston Tea Party solve the problem of being taxed? No, it didn't solve the problem of being taxed. How do you know the problem wasn't solved? How do you know? The king was furious and closed the ports so that no more supplies could come into Massachusetts. The colonists didn't have anything to sell in their stores, which led to more problems. So even though they thought the Boston Tea Party was a good idea, it ended up causing them way more problems in the long run because they ended up making the king furious. All right, final question. Did everyone agree on what should be done? We just read that part. Did all of the colonies agree? No. Some colonists, the loyalists, wanted to remain loyal to the king, and others, the patriots, wanted to rule themselves. Great job with the comprehension questions today. I'm really proud of you. Remember, whenever you don't understand something, or if you miss something, or even if you just want to add more or tell me more, always, you can pause the video, go back into the text to get information. Now, let's move on to word work. In the read aloud, you heard King George told the colonists that they would not receive any more goods from Britain until they had paid for the tea that they had destroyed. Say the word goods with me. Goods. Say it one more time. Goods. Now say it by yourself. Yes, goods. Goods are things that can be traded, bought, or sold. The workers unloaded goods from the ship in the harbor. Have you guys ever bought or sold any goods? If so, you can say, I bought goods when. Thank you for sharing that. I can share. I bought goods when I went to Sephora, which is like a makeup store, and I love lip gloss. So I bought goods when I traded my money, meaning my cash, for lip gloss, meaning I purchased lip gloss from Sephora. So that's a time where I bought goods. What word are we talking about again? Yes, the word is goods. Now let's do a little activity. I'm going to list several things. If something can be bought, traded, or sold, say blank is or are a good. If something cannot be bought, traded, or sold, say blank is are not a good. Get ready. Freedom. Freedom is not a good. Next one. Clothes. Clothes are goods. Pineapples. Pineapples are goods. The moon. The moon is not a good. Love. Love is not a good. Rings. You know, I'm listening to loves jewelry. Rings. Rings are goods. Good job. Give yourselves 2 claps. 2 more. Good job learning about our new word for today, goods. Hope to see you and hear you using these words. This section is called sequencing of events. So I have prepared some cards from the read aloud, and we are going to discuss the events in the card and talk about what events comes first, next, then, and last. So we're going to order the cards to show what came first. But I have some questions that will help us establish or realize what is the appropriate order of events. All right, here goes the first card. Before I show it, I have a question. So, what did the British Parliament do that upset many colonists? All right, I'm going to reveal the card. Let's see if you're correct. They made them pay taxes. So here's our card that we're going to be using that represents taxes. So this is what happened first. So now that we have our first event, I'm going to ask you a question that will help reveal the card that shows the next event. So here goes. How did the Sons of Liberty respond to these acts, especially the Tea Act? They threw the Boston Tea Party. So can you describe this event? So yes, the Boston Tea Party was an act that the Sons of Liberty committed where they dumped many boxes of tea into the ocean to show that they do not and will not be paying for these taxes. So I placed this image card right after and put the word next to show that the Boston Tea Party occurred after the Stamp and Tea Act were passed, after those taxes. And it was a result and a reaction of those acts. So first we had the unfair taxes and then the Boston Tea Party. I wonder what event comes next. Here is the first Continental Congress card. Where in our sequence does this go? Do you think this goes first? Do you think this goes before the Boston Tea Party? Or do you think that this event goes last? It goes last. It goes to the right, meaning after the Boston Tea Party. Can you describe why they met, why the First Continental Congress met? What were they trying to do? The First Continental Congress met to come up with a plan for dealing with the British King and Parliament. So they were trying to come together to create some kind of solution. So now that we figured out what events happened first, next, and last, let's reflect on the chart that you guys got yesterday, right? So my question is, this set of cards that we built today, would they go before the cards about the colonies, or would these cards go after? If you said after, that is correct. Why would these cards about taxes, the Boston Tea Party, and the First Continental Congress come after the colonies? These events took place after those colonies were formed. So the reason that these three cards come after the cards about the colonies is because these events happened after the colonies were created. So we have to put them at the end or after in our timeline. Good job sequencing events. Now we're going to do a picture gallery. So I'm going to introduce what a picture gallery is with a picture that's coming up in 3, 2, 1. In the next several lessons, you will examine pictures of some important people and places connected with the story of the United States as a new nation. So we will be discussing pictures together, and we will write a caption to go along with these pictures. So I'm going to post an image, and I want you to describe the image, the people or things that happen in the image. So captions are words, phrases, or sentences that describe something that is being pictured. So here's the image that we will be writing a caption for to add to our gallery. Today we will work together to create a caption for this picture. This is the first picture in our gallery. So here's the question. Can you identify the event that is taking place in this picture? This event is the Boston Tea Party. Who are the people who are pictured in this scene? Do you remember their names? These are members of the Sons of Liberty. So I'm going to ask you a few questions to help you understand what is depicted or being shown in this picture. And we're going to use that information to make our caption. In order for us to have a lot of information, I'm going to go back to the text and reread the portion about the Boston Tea Party so we would have some background knowledge or some text evidence for when we answer these questions. Get ready. I'm going to go back into the text. This made the king even angrier. He told them that they could not send any more tea back to Great Britain without paying taxes. Because of this, the colonists of Massachusetts revolted or rose up against the British king. They decided that they would not accept the king's decision. Shiploads of tea continued to enter the port of Boston, Massachusetts. A port is a place on the coast where ships loaded and unloaded goods. On a December night in 1773, a group of men known as the Sons of Liberty planned a most unusual tea party. Smearing their faces in soot grease and streaks of red paint, they stuck feathers in their hair, disguised as Mohawk Native Americans, a common symbol for freedom at the time. They made their way down to the harbor or the water along the coast. Climbing aboard 3 British ships, they dumped 342 chests of valuable tea into the harbor. This meant that the British lost tea and money. This event became known as the Boston Tea Party. So now that we have our text evidence, I'm going to ask you a few questions just to help us, pull information out to create our caption for our picture of the Boston Tea Party to be hung in our imaginary gallery. Let's get ready to see what these questions are and what we come up with. Describe what actions you see happening here. I see boxes being dumped into the harbor from large ships. Men are riding in small boats. Next question. What is in the boxes that they are dumping? They are dumping tea. What are the men in the image wearing? They are dressed as Native Americans. What time of day is it? Yes, it is nighttime. And how do you know it's nighttime based on the image? It's dark, the moon is visible, and you can even see stars. So that's what shows me that it's nighttime. So now that we have described the picture, we're going to work together to create a caption. So I want you to think. What's a caption that you would write and describe for this picture? I want you to share it out, and then I'm going to reveal a caption that has all the information from the questions that we answered. Go ahead, share your caption. Thanks for sharing your caption. Good work. We did a really good job of just going back into the text, pulling the information that we needed so we can educate and let people know what the images in our gallery are about. Here is a caption that I came up with that pulled all the information that we discussed. Here goes. The title is The Boston Tea Party. That helps identify the picture. Then it says, the Sons of Liberty are dressed up as Native Americans and throwing tea into the Boston harbor. The Sons of Liberty were a group of colonists. They threw tea into the Boston harbor because they did not think it was fair that they were taxed when they had no representatives in Parliament. So now we're finished. We've recorded this. And this is the caption that will go under our picture so we can go back to it and reference it in other read-alouds. So we're going to have a full gallery by the time this domain is over. So now let's move into what you are going to be doing and submitting, uploading to your portfolio as your exit ticket. I'm going to write a question up, and this is the question that you will be writing on a piece of paper and responding to. Here is the question. Here is your exit ticket question. Here we go. How and why did the Sons of Liberty respond to the taxes the British Parliament was making the colonists pay? Again, how And why did the Sons of Liberty respond to the taxes the British Parliament was making the colonists pay? So I want you to write down this question on a piece of paper, and then I want you to respond to this question. Then when you're done, I want you to upload it onto Class Dojo with a complete response. Remember, at any point in the video, you can pause and rewatch it to help you get text evidence. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed the lesson. Hope you enjoyed the story. So I want you to make sure that you upload your exit ticket to your teacher on your Class Dojo portfolio. The exit ticket is to answer the question, and you can write it on a sheet of paper, on a note card, anything. And I want you to think, really think about our discussion and upload. See you tomorrow for lesson 3.